Call the City of Beaumont Special Council meeting of Tuesday, April 21st to order. Just as we get going, I'd like to take a quick moment to acknowledge that we are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. I appreciate taking time out of your busy schedules to go through these five very important items. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Carried unanimously. Which brings us to business item 3A. Public engagement recommendations. And who from administration will be speaking to that?
She's right here.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you, Council and members of the public. We have prepared public participation guidelines to guide the municipality during the COVID-19 pandemic. The city's top priorities are the health and safety of the public and employees, as well as the continuity of services to residents. With this in mind, with the government of Alberta implementing measures for social and physical distancing restrictions, this led to some uncertainty about how to proceed with any public participation events. As we know right now, it's not possible to do any in-person public events as we are trying to prevent people from gathering, even if we were to limit them to lower than 15, that's for the safety of participants as well as our staff members. As of right now, as everybody's kind of situated into the new normal and adjusted to their new economic reality, dealing with their uncertainty, dealing with homeschooling, whatever else they've been doing, we felt best to not communicate about projects and other things like that at this point. So we have placed a hold on public engagement so that we could have, I guess, genuine conversations with people. We reached out to other municipalities within the region, and they had all placed a hold on their public engagement events temporarily at the beginning of this pandemic event to allow people to adjust. So with that, we have put this in. If you turn to your package, pages 7 through 8, what you will see through here is we've given you an idea about what the guidelines for public participation for capital and operating projects are. So what we had done was, as you know, we created a 90-day business continuity plan within the ECC to guide immediate decisions that needed to be made on projects. And we had given them a ranking of high, medium, and low, and you'll see that it is also attached in as Appendix A to your package here. We've given some examples. So high, we are saying that public participation may occur after May 4th. We've given some different examples about what we're thinking that'll look like. That could be the virtual open houses or webinars, opening up for online comment boards or that sort of thing. The spectrum level would be right across the board with all the 4 different levels that we would use here in Beaumont. I've explained that earlier within the public participation package. And then I've given some examples just to kind of guide everybody in what we were thinking could rank through that. So that might be the multi-purpose field, which would be that football field that is being considered. That would be neighborhood renewal. So those would be some examples of projects that got ranked high and may have some public participation that can continue after May 4th. Medium projects, we're saying that we want you to do limited public engagement. So you can still do virtual stuff, but we're not really thinking it's going to be an open house at this point. So it'll be more like website, more one-way kind of communication, but allowing for more passive communication back for people to provide comments on more boards that would be placed online, that you would still be able to see what everybody else had commented, whether they liked it, didn't like it, or how they might change that. But we wouldn't be really holding a virtual open house for some of those medium projects. Now we're lucky in the fact that most of those medium projects have already had a lot of significant public engagement events that have already gone along with creating those. So we're actually going to be relying very heavily on the public engagement that was done to create those, like our Parks and Places Master Plan or the Transportation Master Plan. Some of the ones where we're going to find a little bit more of a trouble right now might be, say, on plans that are under development, like the Community Standards Bylaw. We have to figure out how we can properly engage the community in a way that it doesn't feel like we're piling on for them. So that's something that we're discussing internally here about what that looks like. But other examples of the medium projects would be the Milu Ball Diamond. So that would be when we would communicate with the residents on the Milu Ball Diamond. We are still continuing to engage with some of those stakeholders. So the ball groups, Beaumont Blitz, because those conversations had already been in place before COVID-19 had occurred. But we will not be reaching out to the stakeholders until after, well, the residents until after May 4th. And then the low projects, we're really saying that we would prefer no public participation to actually happen at this point until the pandemic state of public health emergency has ended. So that might be things like the urban agriculture pilot project or some of those other ones. We've already been engaging on a lot of these different projects. They are an implementation item. We can still do notification, but we're not expecting to get significant resident feedback at that point on those different projects. So we're looking for council right now to receive the public participation guidelines during the COVID-19 pandemic as information, and I'm looking for any feedback that you might have at this point.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate the work and the effort that's gone into this, especially as we move into the new digital age, and we have to try and figure out how to keep and continue to engage our public and move our projects forward. Because a lot of these projects we don't want to miss the construction season on. So if we have to do public engagement, we really do have to do it. So open it up for questions or comments from members of council. Hit the raise your hand button and we'll just go from there. Otherwise, we'll move the motion to accept as presented. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, thank you for the introduction on this. The table suggesting high, medium, and low. I guess in order to have these projects go through, we do have to have levels of public engagement. I was concerned to see that the Dansero and Ken Nickel outdoor rinks, Colonial Playground and Urban Agriculture pilot projects basically would just be paused right now. If you could speak to why the recommendation of not doing any public participation on those and why we're pausing in a little more detail, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk, the reason for the pause at this point would be when we get out of this COVID-19 pandemic, some of the concerns that have been raised are the priorities that we had before we went into this pandemic actually going to be the same? And right now, that would be why those lower projects are ranking as they are with the recommendation to be on hold. We need to make sure that we do have our priorities aligned and that they are aligned with the community. We can also be having a lot of backlash about, well, you just tried to ram this down our throats. You didn't really want our input anyway. And that actually has happened in some other municipalities where they have faced backlash for engaging. We're in a new normal. I don't know how long that will be. Maybe that doesn't have to be until the state of public health emergency is lifted. Perhaps that can be earlier and lighter, not as in depth on some of those different ones. But some of those ones, we already have the information, and I think that I'd like to get away from engagement. Let's use the word participation, because participation also talks about a one-way out kind of communication here. Engagement might be where I'm expecting to have somebody, it's more fulsome. So when we talk about participation, then I can actually utilize the lower end of the public participation spectrum, which is just informing people. So it's letting them know what's happening, offering them an opportunity to reach out and to get that and to keep them informed as we move along with that process. But I don't think it stops public, some of these projects from going ahead, that we can't actually go out there and maybe do something that's fulsome, because some of these projects their opportunity for input or change to the project is actually very little. So to say that we would work with them to make sure that their aspirations were reflected in the decision or to go higher in the spectrum is actually very difficult for us to do, and that sets up a lot of false expectations. So not saying that it can't go ahead, but we're trying to set the stage and not have false expectations be out there too, which is why we would do that, but we would still be notifying them.
So just a quick clarification, because we're talking about public engagement. Are you talking about pausing the project as a whole or just pausing the public engagement process?
Your worship, that's a great question. No, we're not talking about pausing the project as a whole. We're talking about still being able to take those projects and being able to get them to, say, some of those ones might be the design, getting to that point where we might need that resident feedback, and pausing at that point there. So, and doing everything we can maybe around that, with just leaving this piece. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to rejig our schedules to be able to allow for this potential pause or different ways of working around it as we go through this new normal. But it's thrown a little bit of a kink in things for us too. One of the other concerns I think with public,
because I think like you made a good comment about realigning the priorities of the municipality, and honestly, I was waiting till 3C to start kicking off that conversation.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up too. Yeah.
And that may not be a conversation that gets completed today. It may carry on into the next meeting. But so just focusing on the public engagement part, but especially on things like the ball diamonds and the rinks. I mean, we did a Parks and Rec master plan and consulted extensively. So I'm not sure how much public engagement needs to be done other than telling people what we're doing. So I could be wrong. Steve, follow up?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going is, wondering what more do we need for public engagement. I think, probably, the people that back onto the properties and stuff need door knockers and a chance to engage and those kinds of things. I won't get into the how-tos, but what I will speak to is kind of where you started with the priorities. So as we've been at home, I think the priorities have changed. And I think that recreation on the backside of this, people are clamoring to get out of their homes. People are clamoring to do things and clamoring to get out. So if we, if we're able to get done everything up to the design stage now, and we have all these projects waiting on public engagement, quite frankly, my worry is that we're going to miss this construction season to get these done. So that's kind of how this item ties in with, as the mayor suggested, 3C. And I think there's actually a robust discussion to have about what we're putting in what priority, and the public engagement piece, how we can creatively accomplish that, still including the comments, concerns, and seeking out the opinions that we need to, rather than just waiting for people to come, which I think we've been doing an increasingly good job at. So I'm going to pause for now, let others speak, but I think the conversation on priorities needs to happen, and I don't think I'm okay with pausing public participation on, say, the outdoor rinks, the colonial playground, and the urban agricultural pilot project, and waiting and potentially missing a season. So I'll stop there and let some others speak, and I jump back in after. Thank you.
Further comments, Kathy, Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks, Ms. Raymond. I think this is a pretty in-depth view of all of the projects and their consultation needs. I'm generally okay with it. I just want to clarify the date. Is it my understanding that there will be no public participation until May 4th? Or did you say that you are reconsidering it and it could be sooner?
Thank you, Your Worship, through Councillor Barnhart. We're recommending right now that it's not occurring until after May 4th. The only stuff that has still been occurring has been some ongoing conversations that have already begun way prior to this that really need to shape those the design considerations. So engaging with, say, Beaumont Blitz, or making sure the Baja is still included as we work through those. But the rest of that, we're not going out to the public. I just want to touch base just really quickly on one comment that got made here on the low project with the urban agriculture pilot project. I think we've also got to recognize too that this was on here as an example project, but It still has COVID-19 related implications. We've never set up an urban agriculture pilot as we've gone forward. And with that, some of these things already due to the public health restrictions, we're gonna miss the growing season. So we have to be prepared for what that looks like too, but we're looking for ways for people to have urban agriculture happen in their own yards. So that's something to stay tuned for too, as we kind of roll out some more information on that. Similar to the seed starters, but we're working through something with Cheyenne Tree Farm right now about a partnership that we would like to engage with them on, because we're not gonna be able to have a community garden, but we can look at urban agriculture in a different way. So I just wanted to flag that.
Okay.
If I could follow up, Your
Yep.
Worship.
Go ahead.
May 4th is still 2.5 weeks away about. And I'm just wondering if, because we're looking at things remotely and virtual input, is it not possible to do some of these things before then?
The project's not at the stage where it requires it.
Yeah, some of these projects aren't there yet right now, and they're getting it all together and getting it all organized so that as soon as May 4th hits, then we're ready to just go. So that's what they're spending this time doing.
Councilor Mungo-Swain?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I guess I'm curious as to why this is in front of us. May 4th being 13 days away. I'm curious why this is actually in front of us today. Like, are you planning on, like, I'm okay if you need to get your ducks in a row to go for if we're launching on May 5th, but is this something that you're going to be coming back to us in another couple of weeks to say, actually, we want to push this further down the road? Like, I'm just trying to get a better understanding of why this item is actually in front of council today.
Thank you, Your Worship, through Councillor Mungo-Swain. That's a great question. The reason that it's in front of council is to inform them about what we have provided for staff input so that you were fully aware of what was going on and able to support that with the community. Right now, we're playing this by ear as we move along every day. We're finding out different things. To be honest with you, I thought we were going to flatten a little bit earlier, and then I'm seeing that we have, we're still growing exponentially. So we're still looking for that guidance from the province as to when we're going to be able to relax some of these restrictions. So that's just been more what that is. We're reaching out to our colleagues. We're seeing what they're doing. I'm already seeing public more like getting back to normal. We're getting back to the normal business of operating a government, operating as usual. People are getting more used to it, a little bit more comfortable. So I think we're going to be able to do that. I'm not anticipating that we're actually going to need to go past May 4th, because we made a decision that we were going to continue with our capital and with our operating as we already had done. Some municipalities put everything totally on hold and pretty much shelved it. But we wanted to come out of this being able to be with a smooth recovery back to normal operations after this pandemic is over. Public engagement is a piece of that. I'm not expecting that we'll need to do that. We'll just have to sensitively do that and monitor that as we go through that. So not full blast on May 4th, but phased in.
Yeah, okay, and I mean, I respect the fact that it takes some time to build up the strategy and to advertise and all that sort of stuff. So I'm good with that. I acknowledging the fact that we've got the item 3C coming up. I'm firmly in Steve's camp where he was maybe a little more polite than I'll be. So I respectfully disagree with the list in terms of the ranking. I know you're not looking for us to get into too much debate here, but I think with the fact that everyone is at home, there is opportunities to hold these public open houses that get 5-7 people on them. I think we've got time while people are at home, and if we advertise it properly, and to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's point, particularly those ones directly affected, right? We can easily pull together an engagement strategy that it may not be one per project, but maybe we have a night or 2 nights where we're talking about 4 or 5 of the projects, right? And so the ones that you've got down in the low areas, like the Colonial Playground, the Ken Nickel Outdoor Rink, Dulcero, etc. I think we could all bump them up into that area and just having that one or 2 kind of online open houses. So I don't want to get to a point where, and again, where Councillor Van Nieuwkerk is going here, I don't want to get to a point where we're into June and July, and all of a sudden we haven't completed our engagement, and now we've missed the season, right? So the priority for our community is clearly we heard from the recreational master plan that we need these facilities, right? And so we've put them in the budget. I don't want to delay this and potentially not go through the engagement with some of the lower projects that you've got down there, and potentially miss out on that construction season. So I know we're kind of moving a little bit into 3C, so I'm just trying to be careful with my words here. But from a public participation perspective, I think it's pretty straightforward for us to make sure we do the direct mail to those directly impacted residents right around these areas, and then just have that and include them as an invite to attend these online sessions. And from there, we can at least get that basis there, and we'll know pretty quickly whether there are any major concerns that we need to work around. So I just like us to reevaluate that list. Would be my initial 2 cents.
Thank you.
Are there further comments from other members? Councillor Daniluk.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. I guess I echo, and I agree with Steve and Sam's comments already. So I won't go on that any further on there, but I was just kind of wondering if we maybe should have done in the agenda 3C first and then 3A, because if our priorities have changed, it may have changed our engagement schedule. But I think most of my comments actually, John, may be more towards 3C, so I'll maybe stop at that point. I do agree with what's been said so far already, but I think my comments may be geared more towards 3C than 3A, so I'll just stop at that for now, please. But I do agree with Sam said about using reprioritizing our capital projects we identified in our budget should be done this year. We can't let COVID-19 disrupt that. Thank you.
All right. So seeing no further discussion, is council okay with the principles that are laid out in the document for public engagement? I guess is the question. Are we prepared to call the vote to approve these?
Just receive it for information.
We don't need to approve it. Just receive it as information.
Okay. So are we good?
Yeah, I guess it's hard for me to receive something for information, and maybe is it a acknowledgement, some recognition from administration to go back and look at it? I know you're just kind of sharing it with us, but it's kind of awkward subject where you're asking us for information and I'm not necessarily agreeing with it. You're not asking for my opinion here, so I'm just not quite sure how to move forward on the agenda.
Yeah.
Just to weigh in and go back to, this is exactly why we brought it to council. Council is very heightened around public engagement, and we do lots of it. So what we did is put together this 30, 60, 90-day contingency plan, continuity plan coming through the pandemic, and part of it was a modified methodology for public engagement. We bring it back to this table to get exactly what we got. We've got some suggestions from a couple councillors. We will take that back. We will rejig. We'll relook at the priorities, and we'll proceed accordingly and start doing some of these virtual engagements. So that's what we need, unless you want to direct us in any other specific direction.
No, I'm good. That was good clarification. Thank you.
I agree.
All right. So I'll move that we accept these as accept the public engagement strategy as information. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Hendricks, you're on mute still. You're still on mute, Councillor.
Hello?
There you are.
Apparently I'm muted or unmuted by the host. Who's the host?
You're good now.
I'm good now. Thank you. Yeah, I was going to go back to the line item that said it was for information only, but I do appreciate the fact we have received it as information. Obviously, we want to put our best efforts forward, whatever we can to get the word out by way of technology, which is really the last avenue that we have left to engage ourselves properly under this COVID-19 package. I do agree. We do want to miss this construction season as a result. But I also agree that 3C is going to have an impact on this discussion. So thank you for the work done to date. So.
Okay. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Carries unanimously, which brings us to transit, item 3B, transit ridership update and recommendation. turn it back over to TA.
Yeah, Stuart, before I hand this over, I wanted to do a couple introductions here because I don't believe there's a couple people in this room that I'm not sure have been to council yet. You can't see her. Wendy Jones is off sitting next. You can see her computer. There she is. Wendy's our manager of economic development. Joined us several weeks ago just as this thing hit the kaboom. So she's in on this meeting. And then next to me and the next presenter is Jennifer Bosa-Hudak, who is our operations director, who started the same day as we rolled out the ECC. So you haven't had a chance to interact with these folks, but they have been working diligently behind the scenes and responsible for some great pieces of work in the last 5 weeks. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer to present the transit report.
So I just want to take us through the summary of the COVID impacts on Beaumont Transit. Beaumont has offered free transit since March 19th with no revenue generation. Beaumont ridership from March 18th to April 8th has decreased approximately 90% compared to the 2019 same range. We have reached out to ETS to try to get a more current ridership number, but unfortunately with their limited resources and their work on their transit, we weren't able to get any new information. So what you see in the package is the most current. Overall, regionally, there's an estimated 80% reduction in ridership. Some changes that have been implemented within the region include a reduction in frequency of service delivered, reduced routes, and route cancellations. Other municipalities have suspended their local services, and Edmonton Transit Service is currently reducing their service times with a commitment to daily monitoring. There are some budget impacts that were noted in the package if we decide to stop transit, but I'm wait for a moment here. I just want to let you know within our current contract, we actually do not have anything contemplated, like probably many contracts currently in the world, for pandemic financial relief. So that will be something we'll be looking at a later date. As far as the reduction in budget or financial implications, if we actually decide it's $1,072.05 a day or $5,360.25 a week if we stop transit. I want to bring to light that the most recent, it's about seven total ridership right now, and lately we haven't seen too much more than that. So the recommendation currently is that we're looking to actually have council direct administration to temporarily suspend Beaumont Transit Service starting on May 4th, and we will reevaluate on June 9th at the council meeting.
Okay. Appreciate the summary and the update, and I know ridership. Just a quick 2 clarification questions before I open it up to council. First question is that 7 unique riders going both ways, or is that 7 total? So maybe 2 riders coming one way, sort of thing.
Correct. It's 7 ticket sales, so both ways in total.
7 ways.
Yeah.
Okay. And my next question would be, have we checked our contract? If we suspend it, are we still going to have to pay for it? Because if we're still going to pay for it, you might as well let it roll.
Basically, if today we had a conversation, if we cancel today with ETS, they will not charge us the wages. So they're working with us to reduce those costs. We may have to pay for bus storage because it is in their facility.
Okay, so do we have any idea what that cost savings might be?
Unfortunately, that it'll probably be closer to about, he indicated to me that he was looking at about 4,500 if we had to do bus storage. I've asked for alternate solutions as well to that a week.
4,500 a week.
Yeah, well, that would be our savings if they had, if we had to do the bus storage. Yeah.
Oh, so our savings is out of the 5-ish.
Yeah.
Savings would be 4,500.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. You answered my questions greatly. Open it up to members of council. Councillor Van, I'm just going to go in the order it popped up. So Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor Monkhouse Swain, followed by Hendricks and Stout. Steve, you're up. Sorry,
Yeah.
Councillor Van Newkirk, you're up.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thank you. I want to just dive into those numbers just a little bit more for a little bit more clarity. So in the document, it's presented as 5360, so 5,360 per week cost. And then you had suggested we'd have a $4,500 savings. So the difference between 4,500 and 5,360, that would be the amount that the municipality is not paying. Is that correct?
It is paying for the bus storage.
So we'd be paying $800 a week to store the buses.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the remaining cost to Beaumont is $800 a week.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I wanted to clarify that cost first. Okay, thanks. I'll let others speak.
Councillor.
I assume you threw it to me and someone muted you, so I'll just go. Thank you for the information and the review. Really appreciate the initial efforts anyway to open up it as free to avoid handling cash over tickets, etc. But I think clearly from the numbers, it shows that there is value in us shutting the service down. So I at a high level, I agree with the recommendation. I did have a couple of questions. One directly on this matter, and then one on a longer term contract. So what I'll do, Your Worship, if that's okay, is I'll ask my first question, and then I'll wait for others to ask questions on this particular matter, and then I'll have a follow up on the general contract for the bus. So the folks that are on the bus and those that are catching it right now, some of them, are using this as their only method of getting to and from work. And so clearly a communication is going to be important across the municipality for this. And while it may only seem like 7 riders or less, depending on the day, those folks and some of them are in critical workers as deemed by the province. So we're just going to make sure that that we are communicating, and I understand that our folks would have this on board, but maybe there's an opportunity to get out there and try to chat to some of those folks who are, and see if there's anything that we can do from a municipality perspective, because I hate for some of our critical care workers not to be able to access their work because the bus system isn't there. So in general, I support it, but I'm just curious around if we had thoughts on how we're planning on connecting with those specific individuals who are using it.
We'll have to see if we'll have to do some work with that. We'll take a look at if there are monthly pass holders that are actually using that. We are going to utilize the actual transit. We have a signage location that we will preempt with some information, contact City of Beaumont for further information, and maybe we can help them out that way. So we'll try to do some communication to determine the issues with the ridership. We will be doing, and that's why we did May 4th, to allow us that freedom to get some feedback as well. So it wasn't immediate. It gives us that time to actually get that information from those transit users.
Yeah, and certainly appreciate that. I'm sure those will definitely impacted. We'll reach out, and I don't have any solutions, but I just wanted to make sure that that we're clear and open and following that email that is used from those transit riders. So appreciate that. So I'll yield, John, and I'll follow up with a question once people get through their comments on this. Thank you.
Councillor Hendricks, followed by Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Again, I'd echo the comments from Councillor Sam Muckle-Swain. I would also echo your comments about the contract. I think it's important that we really dive into the detail. It was a significant document at the time when we constructed that. I would ask if there's just a possibility of parking the buses in our yard. At one time, we were going to be the mechanics yard for that facility. It was a discussion that was early on. So the public works yard does have, I think, space and allocation, or potentially we swap out some of the things that are inside to go outside, be it graders or otherwise. But it's a significant asset. We own it. There are buses. So I'd reach out to say, hey, let's see if we can't come up with the best possible solution on the math side. On the 7 that are taking the bus, let's find out what their travel patterns are. Are they all on the same bus in the morning? Are they all on the same bus at the end of the day? Is it just 2 trips a day that would solve this? I don't know. But yes, I think we definitely need to look forward as far as how we can solve this problem on their behalf. So thank you.
Councillor Stowe. You're still on mute, Councillor.
Got it. Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I would echo all the previous comments as well. I see the obvious economic reasons for doing this. I am concerned about the small number of riders who are still relying on this, because presumably they don't have any realistic alternative to using the service, and by closing it down altogether, we leave them in the lurch, or potentially do. So I'd like to see if there's any possibility of providing an alternative solution for those people. And then just one other question. You referred to reopening this on June, or looking at this again in June. Was it June the 4th? June the 9th?
June the 9th.
June the 9th, okay. And reevaluating it. What exactly are we reevaluating? As if the service is closed, presumably we won't be selling any monthly tickets, and we obviously won't have any riders. So what's the reevaluation?
The reevaluation would be, do we open it up again? Or have the health restrictions relaxed enough that we'll get the ridership to make it viable again?
But that's okay. That's not really an evaluation, is it? That's a best guess, depending on if any of the regulations have changed. I mean, really, what we're waiting for is some some relaxation of the current restrictions,
so that more people are using it. I see.
Yes, correct. It's to actually reevaluate and allow us the opportunity, if citizens do come back to us and say things change with essential services around, we just want to be nimble enough to be able to receive information, have another conversation to say, look, citizens have reached out to us. Maybe we can look at it again, and we have a date that we're reevaluating if the COVID restrictions haven't been lifted.
Right. So if we're in the same position we're in today, then we're unlikely to reinstitute service on that date. We might say, let's wait another month and see if something else changes.
Correct. And if Edmonton, the other thing, if our partner decides to talk to us about different contractual things, we want to be able to have a discussion too. Because they're working with us right now, but I want to keep that open to bring it back to the table.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. Just to clarify then, so based on Councillor Hendrick's comment, which that was actually a very astute one, if we were able to store the buses on our own property, that storage fee would go away. So our cost would go down to zero, basically. Is that correct? Just
correct.
To clarify.
Yes, and that's what we're working on. Yes.
And not necessarily. We may have other contractual arrangements within the contract that
I agree with. Based on
make any sense for us to store our own buses.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Because if we have to maintain a level of cleanliness and other things, like it may be more headache than it's worth for $800.
Yeah, that's true. I understand. I was just clarifying for the purposes of the information in front of us now. So I'll stop with that. Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I agree with a lot of the points. I think all of the points that have been raised so far. One question for the administration: would it be possible to start sooner than June 9th? The way the motion reads, we wouldn't be able to look at it again until June 9th. And I'm thinking for monthly passes, wouldn't they be starting on June 1st?
Well, aren't we already having free transit?
Yes.
Indefinitely?
Right now it's sitting there as indefinite free transit at this point in time.
Okay, well, but still then, could we not look at it before June 9th?
We would have to call.
We're monitoring it on a regular basis. I just brought it forward to the council to align it with the council meeting, but yes, we could bring it forward if needed. If things change, we would. So
perhaps the motion could be no later than June 9th, reevaluate no later than.
Okay.
Sure. Councillor Hendricks, did you have a further follow-up?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Munga of Swain, you're last on the list before we call the question here.
Yeah, thanks. So the question was just around the contract in general. So it's up at the end of this year with ETS. Obviously, we've got the Regional Transit Services Commission kind of in the background trying to figure that out. I appreciate probably not high on the priority list right now, but just curious on the thinking of administration around, are we planning to go back and renegotiate that? Are we looking for a 1-year extension? Are we, have we started thinking about that? And totally fine if the answer is we'll get back to you next week. But I was just curious, whenever we talk about transit, that the end of this year was always kind of looming for me. I'm just interested in what our strategy is around that contract.
I'll weigh in on that one, and then Jennifer can add if she likes. One of the presentations that we were planning to bring before COVID-19 hit was the presentation on bus on demand. We're going to arrange to have that brought back virtually very soon. And within it, there may very well be some options to provide a commuter at a much more effective rate and better service. In the absence of that, though, Jennifer and her staff will be working with the ETS to determine what our options are on that side as well. Of course, we've got regional transit and a whole bunch of moving parts. So I can't answer that right now, but we're looking into a number of different options. And you're right, if one's not ready by the end of the expiration, then possibly a renewal is our best advantage, and we'll bring that back to council.
Okay. Follow up? No. Okay, is there a member of council willing to move the recommendation that council direct administration to temporarily suspend Beaumont Transit service starting on May 4th, 2020 to be reevaluated no later than the June 9th, 2020 council meeting?
I can do that, John.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Munkoff-Swain. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. I'm having some real trouble with keeping my computer connected to my base station, so I'm going to call a 5-minute recess and reboot my computer and see if that solves my problem. A couple things to note as we were in the break. For those that are watching at home on our YouTube channel, if you'd like to see the agenda, there is a link within the body of the YouTube video that you can click on, and you can see the agenda on the item and the background on the item that council is currently talking about. Just from a ease of process point, I'm going to move that we do item 3D before item 3C, just for ease of discussion, and we'll go from there. So discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Awesome. That brings us to item 3D, council and committee of the whole meeting time change recommendation. I believe that's Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. COVID outbreak was declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization on March 17th, 2020. During the outbreak of COVID, the recommendations for Alberta public health officials is to have restricted businesses and services to essential services. Many Albertans who are not considered essential have been either unable to work or working from home or isolating at home. With many of our residents at home, there's an opportunity for them to attend and participate in council and committee of the whole meetings during the day. At this time, administration is looking for direction on how council wishes to proceed with the timeframes on meetings.
Awesome. Hang on. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll open it up to questions from members of council. Councillor Hendricks, followed by Councillor Munkoff-Swain, followed by Councillor Barnhart.
I haven't raised my hand so on the system, so nothing to say at this time. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Barnhart, I believe was next.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. I'm assuming this is as long as we're doing virtual meetings, and it doesn't say that per se in the motions. I wonder if it should.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Barnhart. It is while we're doing virtual meetings, and we have a review date on June 23rd. We could add in that wording again, no later than. We could use that if you want to amend the motion.
Okay.
I would, Mayor, like to make sure it's clear, because if those meetings were in-person meetings in the afternoon and we're back to normal, I wouldn't be able to attend.
Okay, fair enough. we can make that modification. I don't know where. Sorry, I'm still trying to pull it up. So yeah, we'll make that modification to the recommended motion in a second. Councilor Margot Swain.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for bringing this forward. You know, I guess from a personal note, obviously I have another job, and so it's a bit of a struggle for me to have these meetings during the day. But I recognize that the majority of folks at administration are, you know, working hard through the COVID stuff, and to stick with the 6 p.m. meetings and make that longer. Probably I know is not effective for them. So I personally, I'm okay with this. I did have a clarifying question from Ms. Winter. You know, a while back we voted to council policy. We voted on kind of 6 things, and I wish I had it in front of me, but we voted on 6 things in terms of not being able to participate in external regional meetings or not having any in-person meetings. I want to say the date was end of April. It could have been end of May. I'm just curious on how that lines up with what we've got in front of us here. Do we need to revisit that motion that we made when this COVID thing first hit? So I'm just curious how that's intertwined here. But generally, I'm okay with the motion and look forward to some brevity of meetings.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Monkoff Swain. Those motions actually from those meetings were until further notice. We didn't actually put a date on those motions. The only motions that we've actually put dates on that are COVID related have to do with the tax and utility payments.
Yeah, I actually remember that very vividly now, so thanks for reminding me, and apologies for bringing it up. So in short, we're good there. That policy remains in effect until we bring that back. A good reminder though, just to note that I know some regional conversations are trying to see if they can have a different type of discussion, and so would need to come back and look at the policy before moving forward with that. So in short, I'm good with it. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions from members of council for Ms. Winters? All right, so I do have, I did find the motions. They're up in front of me. We actually have 2 to make. The first one, that council direct administration to conduct the necessary advertising, advising the public of a time change of regular council meetings scheduled the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of the month to start at 1:30 p.m., previously 6 p.m., to take effect immediately and be evaluated no later than June 23, 2020, or unless we go back to in-person meetings. Is there a member of council willing to move that motion? Councilor Barnhart.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Second motion is that council direct administration to conduct the necessary advertising, advising the public of the time change for committee of the whole meeting scheduled on the 3rd Tuesday of the month to start at 1:30 p.m., previously 5 p.m., to take effect immediately and be reevaluated no later than June 23rd, 2020, or unless we start back to in-person meetings. Is a member of council prepared to make that motion? Councillor Danlock.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
Seeing no discussion on the motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much. That carries unanimously. Which brings us to item 3C, and what will probably kick off a larger discussion surrounding priorities as we come out of this COVID-19 process. Unfunded 2020 capital projects. CIO, you want to kick this off?
Yes, actually, I'm gonna push this over to Mr. Dowler, and then we'll kind of do a tag team routine as we go through here. We got Rob in the room, we got others in the room that will be able to contribute as well. I'll let Mr. Dowler sort of set the narrative.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll keep this short because I know based on prior discussion, it sounds like council has some things that they want to discuss on this topic. But in front of council today is a report for information related to unfunded capital projects. On April 15th, in response to a request from the province, a letter was sent by the mayor to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, which included a list of shovel-ready unfunded projects. The letter and list of projects was intended to show that the city was ready in the event the province provided or announced economic stimulus funding. The list of projects has been provided as attachment 1 of the report, and it is administration's intention that the list be provided for information purposes. In reviewing the list, however, if a member of council does believe that there are projects that are of now a higher priority than other projects approved as part of the 2020 budget, then this is an opportunity to identify those and possibly propose amendments to the budget. In the absence of any proposed amendments, administration intends to wait to receive a response from the province on funding. And in the event of any additional funding being announced, administration would return to council with specific recommendations around amendments to the capital budget. And with that, I would turn it to others for comments or open it up for questions from council.
Mayor Stewart? Just to build off of what Mr. Dowler was talking about, we put this list together with specific sets of criteria, sent it off to the province. We've done a lot of research since then on recovery strategies, as has everybody around us. And one of the commonalities that has come out of that is the direction, and I'll let Rob speak about this in a second, that you can't build your way out of something like this. We've consulted with some people who have been involved in some pretty significant events, and in fact, planning on bringing back one of those people to council in a couple weeks. And I say that because this list doesn't have to be finalized or anything like that today. The projects that we are funding are at the conceptual stage, so we can continue along those even if they don't get to the build. But we want to take the opportunity to have a robust conversation, and maybe we need to provide more information that we don't have on what our recovery strategy looks like. And I'm going to put Rob on the spot if he could share a little bit more of the discussions he's been involved with, and then we'll throw back council.
Thank you, Mike. So council, just so you're aware, we've had some discussions with business disaster recovery professionals. One in particular on Friday, she's been directly involved with the fires in Fort Mac, the floods down south, Puerto Rico, the earthquake, trained with FEMA, and has a lot of international contacts and experience as well. In discussion around business disaster recovery, one of the key points brought up from a municipal perspective was making sure that projects and work and effort done by the municipality during and after an event such as this needs to be very strategically thought out and should be looking at what is the ROI from how many jobs and how does this improve your economy after. If it's work that's simply for the sake of work or catching up on something and may not have a direct benefit, i.e. job creation or economic spin-off, she suggested we be very cautious. So we're continuing on our discussions, and right now we are working on building at least an initial outline of what our recovery strategy could be, looking at our projects, obviously, but also looking at some of our economic development initiatives that we currently have in flight. So that will be coming, as CAO Mike had said, to council in the next couple of weeks. But it was some very, I thought, timely feedback by her, and the experiences she brought to the table definitely, I think, lends itself for us for consideration.
Okay. And so just further to build on that, there's been some conference calls with the province and some other conference calls with other entities within lately that are starting to look at this as being a really long-term item. I don't think this is going to be a quick bounce back. This is probably going to go on for 12 to 18 months. And so I think we need to be really cautious about on what we're going to do. So I don't necessarily think we're looking to either cancel projects today or add projects today or do anything like that. But today is the day to really start kicking off these discussions on to whether or not these sort of things are going to spur the economy. They're going to have a recovery, aid our community in its recovery. I mean, I know we've watched Premier Kenney roll out his 5 steps to relaunching, and the first one is major testing. And so until we get that particular component into place, I don't think the economy is going to kickstart anytime soon. And so the question that should be before council is what are the long-term benefits of these projects that we're doing in our capital plan and our maintenance plan? and these unfunded ones, and whether or not we should be either changing some out, adding some, taking some away. Will it support the recovery the way we want it to? And perhaps we need to start looking at a longer term recovery strategy that may have 3 points. We may be looking at some short term, that getting some of these done to get some short term stimulus into the economy, to get some people working right away and get some money flowing. Some longer term economic recovery goals, which will support the diversification of our economy, as oil and gas, as we all know, was trading in the negatives in the last day and a half. So I think oil and gas is going to be severely hurt for a while. So how do we support that, and how do we support diversification efforts to get around it? And then as well, we need to look at some of these social impacts that have come about due to all these deferrals. And like, a lot of people aren't working right now, and so we've deferred taxes, we've deferred utility payments, we've deferred all sorts of things, and there's some loans out there, but they all start to come due in September, October, November. And so some of the things we need to start thinking about is what happens if we're still in the same boat then as we are now, and people have to start paying for these things. And so I think we really need to take a comprehensive look at our strategy and as to what we're doing, and whether or not these projects in the unfunded capital are going to do what we need them to do. And so that's sort of my opening statement on that. I'll open it up for comments from members of council. Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, thank you. I think the issue we have before us today is not only COVID-19, it's also an economic problem here in the province, both of which need a recovery strategy, both of which need stimulus. You've got our Premier knocking on the door heavily with the federal government, saying you have to come out here to Alberta and produce some stimulus monies, as a result of oil and gas and other issues. Yes, we've got the oil and gas piece. We potentially have some issues regarding now Cargill and other things that seem to be erupting as a result of COVID-19. We've got certainly all the stimulus issues that we're going to have to be in place here to allow for businesses to restart. We have the situation with what I consider to be, and I'm going to use the word piling on. There seems to be some more and more piling on about where this may be taking us. I think as a community, we have to certainly model where we're going, but we also have to be a little bit more hopeful about where we're going. If you listen to the media and you try to follow some of their thought patterns, it's piling on. It's not giving us a way out. And I think we need to give ourselves a way out. So modeling is important. I agree that we have to be careful. We have to be strategic. However, we also have projects that need to be done. These are not frivolous wants of infrastructure pieces. These are all part of a very cohesive program that we've got in place here for this community, which has been part of our 4-year mandate as a council. So our mandate will start to slow down and terminate next year. And so we also have to take that into account, because you don't want to have that the people of Beaumont have invested this heavily in all of this effort, only to have it at the point of execution and we're starting to roll it out, only to have it then sequestered as a result of this COVID-19. So positivity, I think, is very, very important. You have to give the business community some sense of, that there's a positive, light at the end of this tunnel, that there's going to be a new beginning, and it will happen sooner than later. And yes, it'll be a phased rollout and a phased approach and all the rest, but modeling of that is very important. We should be modeling that right now, but we should also be mindful that the human spirit is very powerful. And despite what's happening around us, you can see how well this human spirit has been taking on this huge challenge. And we have to add, we have to aid, we have to be part of the process and help facilitate. So yes, we model, but yes, we also help. And we help in a way that stimulus helps. All of the surrounding communities are pushing for some kind of stimulus package. The provinces, the feds are, we should be too. So that'd be my thoughts. Thank you.
Councillor Margot Swain.
Yeah, thanks. A few comments here and a few questions. So I guess first up, well said by Perry. I think, they're projecting the confidence, and I think it is important, obviously following the guidelines, but we need to keep moving forward here. I'm a little cautious. I want to throw some caution around, how much the city can actually participate in stimulating the economy here. I think these projects were approved before COVID-19 because they were needed by the community. Once we get through COVID-19 or we get the vaccine and everything that we need to kind of resume to relatively normal life, they're going to be needed after that. So I personally don't view these as a great opportunity for us to stimulate the economy on the approved projects. The list that CAO Schwartz and everyone else put together, I think was excellently done. Don't have any issues or comments with that. I think it shows that we are prepared, that we weren't anticipating COVID, obviously, but we knew that the economy was struggling here, and if and when either the provincial or the federal government did have some stimulus dollars available for infrastructure, we had that list ready to go. So I was really happy with that letter you sent, Your Worship, and all the work that administration did to pull that together. The reality is, it's in their court now, and there's not much we can do. But great job to pull that together, and it showed what a professional organization that we are, and I was really proud that we were able to respond that quickly on that. So really wanted to say that up front. I'll ask a quick question here. Based on this is from Mike Dowler here. Based on the 2020 budget, my understanding is we have $2.5 million in MSI remaining and $2.5 million in the federal gas tax. I got a follow-up question to that, but just can you give me a yes or no that we've got 2.5 MSI, 2.5 for the federal gas tax based on our approved 2020 budget?
Based on the approved 2020 budget as at February 25th, that's correct. One thing that I'll just remind Council of is that there was a subsequent approval of an additional $1.5 million to service a site in the city. That $1.5 million was intended to come from grant or be funded from grant as well. So the numbers that you initially saw during the February 25th have now been reduced by that 1.5.
Yeah, so exactly the follow-up question I was going to ask here was just I was wondering why that wasn't in the report initially. So I just wanted to flag that. And when we're going to be talking about, and I agree with the mayor, I don't think we're looking at horse trading too much here, but I think we do need to take a look at what we've approved and what we shouldn't, what we have approved and what we could potentially forego. Going back to the original discussion on 3A, I think those recreation projects are absolutely needed. To my point, they were needed before COVID. They're going to absolutely be needed once we kind of get back to a new sense of normalcy here. This is not just about getting kids out into recreation activities. We went through an extensive engagement process around the recreation master plan. It was clear that these things were highly in demand. And one of the things that we've got to be really careful of in Beaumont here is the growth rate that we've got to make sure we don't take advantage of that. And yes, we like to say we're the fifth fastest growing community in Canada, and that's true, and that's great. And it speaks to a lot of how great our municipality is. But if we don't provide those recreation opportunities, then people are going to come here, and if they find out that they can't join the football team, or the football team has to practice in Mill Woods, or they got to go to New Sarepta to play hockey, then I'm worried about the growth rate for that. So absolutely plow ahead with the recreation projects. I'll pause there, Your Worship, and let others jump in. And I've got one of the projects that I'd like to kind of raise the questions around, but I'll let others jump in here. But just wanted to put my support behind those recreation projects we already approved. So thanks for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Moncassin, for those comments. Just like to reiterate that, so the question, that's exactly the conversation we're trying to have around is what do we feel the needs of the community are in coming out the other end. For myself, I'm not necessarily advocating that we reduce our spending unless our administration comes back and tells us that we're into some financial difficulty and that we can't sustain that level of spending this year. But I would hesitate to try to add projects and spend more, because like I said, this is a long-term thing. We can't spend our way out of it. And if we need to apply some short-term stimulus in 2021, we need to leave the financial room to do that. So I'm going to advocate that we maintain the spend, and if we want to switch stuff out, we can switch stuff out, but I wouldn't advocate to add.
I would agree with that. The municipality shouldn't be, we looked at this prudently from a budget perspective, and with this pandemic, we shouldn't be trying to spend our way out of it. We've got the list of projects. If the province can help us, great. I'd like to look at that list and maybe reduce an item, but we'll get to that. But I couldn't agree more with what you said there. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Hendricks, you're up.
I'm afraid I've said my piece. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. The list sort of jumps around. Apologize. Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor Daniluk. Councillor Van Newkirk, you're still on. Yeah. I understand the problems. You want Bill to go first? Councillor Daniluk, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. I'll just echo the comments made previously already on the same issue. For me, our priorities that we did the 2020 budget operationally and for capital have not changed. COVID, in my mind, is a recognized situation, but we need the rec center going forward. It's already in the works. The new ball diamond, the rinks we propose to build, rink refurbishing, the art study, all those priorities to me have not changed at all in any way or form with COVID. So unless, as you mentioned a moment ago, a fiscal reason has brought into this situation, but from my understanding, if I'm wrong, Mr. Dollar, please correct me. We did a prudent budget. We've allocated our grants prudently. We haven't been spending it too outlandishly. So I do believe we're in a good position to continue with our commitments to our capital budget for the year 2020, in my opinion, at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Dollar, you want to respond to that, or?
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Daniluk. From what we can see right now, from a financial standpoint, COVID-19 is not putting the same kind of pressure on the city of Beaumont as other municipalities might be experiencing. So I think we're in pretty good position to come out the other end of this, looking fairly strong from a financial standpoint. Having said all of that, I do think it's still prudent to continue to use the approved capital budget. There was enough discussion with council around those particular projects being the priority. I don't see any of that really changing given the circumstances today. So I do think it's prudent to continue to move forward with that and not necessarily add anything new to it. If the province does have some additional funding, it's possibly another or a different conversation with council that we would be happy to bring back. But until that point in time, I think it's moving ahead with what we have.
Fair enough. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. My unmute has worked now. I just wanted to start by saying a little bit here. So looking around the municipality and watching what people are talking about when they're at home. I've seen calls for repairs to 510. Administration has been able to respond. We had the hot box and we have had the pavers, and I've got photos of them at work, and they've been doing a great job. In subsequent to that, the conversations online have been around, when is 510 going to be fixed? Well, guess what? In our budget, we have a 510 overlay, plus we have a 510 joint study with Leduc, which I believe Leduc County is still good for. We have residents that are excited about the BSRC. I can't wait for it to be online. And Councillor Hendricks and the team over in the promotions committee are going to make some sparks fly there and have some good times when we get a good parking lot to go and kick that bugger off. So that's great. Continue to hear more fields, more fields, more fields. Well, the recreation master plan said that loud and clear, showed our field deficit. As I've said before, there's a table in that recreation master plan that, numerically shows us how far behind we are in other municipalities. So we have that. We can't forget that there's been a lot of conversation around wanting dog park while we're working down some solutions there. Residents have really liked, I think, seeing their tax dollars at work. I think administration's done a great job with, getting mobilized the pothole filling, getting mobilized the street sweepers, stuff like that. You can see your dollars at work is bang on. I'll pause there on that front, but one of the questions that I have that I'll start with here, during our budget session, we had set aside lumps of money for these projects. And question for administration is, on the current capital budget that we have in front of us right now, approved, are those 2020 amounts that were set aside, have those amounts been vetted, and are they sufficient to do what we want to do? Subsequent to the mayor's comment the mayor had made previously around engineering and this and that required for a ballpark, you know, adding to the cost or not, you know, for the ballpark, we had, let's say, $350,000. Has administration, so my question, has administration been able to vet those dollars that have been set aside to make sure that they are enough to do the projects that they're intended? Thank you. I'll start there, and I got more.
Okay. CEO, Mr. Dollar.
Can you clarify the question? Sorry.
Yeah, you bet. So, for instance, we have feasibility for art study pegged at 50,000. We have Township Road 510 detailed design pegged at 300. Ken Nickel outdoor rink pegged at 300. Dan's Row at 300. Ball Diamond at 350. Park and Colonial at 30. 80 acres at 75. And I know a couple of those pieces there are stuff that we asked to be spent around the 80 acres and such. But can you confirm that those amounts that are put aside in the capital budget are in fact each enough money to do what council intends to do?
Okay, thank you. At this point in time, keeping in mind that we're in the conceptual stage of a lot of these, we believe that they are. In fact, we're going to look at packaging to try and get some savings on some of those recreation projects as well. The study, why can't I see it? I'm looking right at it right now. The performing arts feasibility, as we had reported, there was a lot of work done on that already. So we believe we have an opportunity of coming in under. So short answer to your question is yes, we think it's adequate.
Okay, one follow-up and then I'll let others. Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. So the additional costs that we've seen come out that Councillor Monkoff-Swain led off with was a 1.5 million, you know, that is being funded from the grants. And personally, I'm not certain what more we might or might not see from that project as it goes down the road. I'm not convinced that there isn't going to be an ask for more money and us to come back to the well looking for more here. So I'll pause there for a second and let others catch up, and then I'm happy to continue down this path. Thank you.
Councillor Monkoff-Swain, do you want a second round here, or you just leave it up from last time?
Yeah, I'll ask a generic question. The neighborhood renewal program, CAO Schwartz, do you have an update on where we're at with that? Is that already tendered? Are we, is that kind of full motion there?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Monkoff-Swain. To my knowledge, it has been tendered. What I'm going to do here in the next few minutes is get that confirmed. But yeah, I believe it's tendered. Jennifer, do you add anything?
Yeah, we're just waiting to see if it was awarded. So yeah,
Okay.
It's been tendered, yeah.
We're tendered, we're just checking to see if it's been awarded.
Okay, and so just a clarifying statement, I guess, from you around the contracting process. Do we have any ability to adjust that contract?
That's what we're just checking on right now.
I should have
Thank you.
Should have an answer momentarily.
Okay, sorry. Appreciate that.
Okay, further comments from other members of council? Councillor Dunlop. You're still on mute.
Sorry. I didn't have any background noise eliminated. Sorry about that. Previous question that was answered or asked by, I think it was Councillor Monkoff-Swain, if the various capital projects, for example, the Ball Diamond and the potential 2 new rinks, if they've been vetted for cost feasibility. I didn't quite get a clear answer on that unless I missed something with my muting there for a moment, but can we, I'm assuming that Mr. Suderman, maybe that might be his area of expertise for that kind of project being under recreation.
CAO?
I missed the question, I'm sorry.
He missed the answer you gave to Councillor Munkoff Swain in relation to the numbers on the rec projects being sufficient.
Oh, yeah, no, my answer to that was yes, we believe, and in fact, we're looking at ways to reduce those costs.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have an answer to that question?
If I could add, clarify that the neighborhood renewal has been tendered, but it has not been awarded.
So I can see the question coming from council. So we could cancel that award if we wanted to.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, Councillor Munkoff Swain, you want to follow up on that? Because you're headed down a way. Let's go.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And we have been down this path before, and I may not get any love, but we'll give it a go. So just the province of potential projects for that they can fund from a stimulus perspective. I don't think that if they did help us with any of those, I don't think they're going to fund that 100%. I think there are going to be, there's going to be some sort of mechanism for Beaumont for us to be able to kick in to help contribute to that. And so my real worry, I guess, is how I started off the conversation and just some of the fact that we've added another $1.5 million to the grant process for that school site. My worry is that we're a little bit lower on the grants piece. So, I've had my argument around the neighborhood renewal program before. I won't go into that in detail, but ultimately, if I look at what is the community looking for right now, it's these recreation projects, it's the infrastructure projects that we've got on that secondary list. So, my recommendation would be to cancel that for this year. I'm not talking about long term. This would easily be able to move on and execute it in 2021. And so by doing that, that saves us $1.7 million and gives us all that room back that we just, I don't want to use the term lost, but that we took away for that additional school site. So my recommendation would be to cancel that neighborhood renewal program for this year. And give us that additional room that we need if the province does come back to help us with those stimulus projects, or if some of these other things work out that we need to push forward for. So if that money doesn't get realized in 2020 and those projects don't come from the feds, nothing says that we can't have an increased neighborhood renewal program next year. And so this year we've got kind of Ring Road from 50th Street around to just past Bow Meadow. Whatever's next on the list, there's no reason why if we didn't spend that money, no reason why we couldn't do both those things that is targeted for 2021 next year. So I think there's an opportunity for us here just to be a bit more prudent with this grant dollars, with the understanding that if we don't need them, then we'll just double up the neighborhood renewal program next year with that same funding. So that would be my pitch, and open it up to council if anyone else has any comments or want to laugh me out of the room. Thank you.
Interesting proposal. I can see some benefits to it, because it would allow us to both have that pot of money available if we had to cross match on the stimulus program. And it would also leave us that pot of money available if we had to do some other things to aid in the economic relaunch. So I'm not quite there yet, but I'm thinking about it. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah. Mayor Stewart?
Yes.
Just before you start debating, I thought I'd double check with Mr. Dowler to find out. I think I know the answer to this, and find out if there are any restrictions on that grant money if it doesn't get used this year, to just simply move it to next year. And I think the answer, there aren't any, but let's just verify it.
Okay, quick question to Mr. Dowler, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk. Sorry.
Yeah, in terms of the grant program, there really isn't any restrictions in terms of delaying it a year. We do have a certain amount of time in order to spend the dollars that we've received from the province. And I think we're still well within that, even if we do shift it a year.
And I imagine due to COVID-19, we could probably get an extension if we asked nicely.
Yeah, agreed. I'm sure the province would be more than willing to provide an extension if need be.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to lift up my flag and I'm going to plant it in the pause neighborhood renewal for the year camp. I wasn't there during budget. I initially started thinking about this when the project around the school site all of a sudden needed $1.5 million more. Like I said earlier in my comments, I'm not convinced that there might not be more that's required. Then when the administration's list came out, like Councillor Monkoff-Swain had said, I wondered what mechanism we were going to have to be able to kick in and get some of these projects moving forward. And to reiterate what Councillor Monkoff-Swain said, you know, typically there's a cost share on those types of things, and I wonder how we were going to do that with the dollars that we had. And looking forward to some of the studies and feasibility studies that we're doing right now, you know, some of the intent in the background, I believe, was to get some construction going that isn't on the capital project list. So if a feasibility study comes together and we need more money, where are we going to go to get that? So I think that if we take a pause on the neighborhood renewal program, like I said earlier, you know, I haven't heard or seen residents saying emphatically that neighborhood renewal is something we need to do this year. What I have heard is fix 510. What I have heard is I can't wait for the BSRC to open. What I have heard is that I want more fields for my kids to play in. What I have heard is I want a dog park. What I have heard very, very strongly is when can we get an arts facility? What I have heard is that we have a football team that doesn't have a field to play on. What I have seen us put money towards is technical study for a multi-purpose field. What I have seen us put money forward is a study for an arts facility. So, so you know, that's where my head is at right now, and why I'm planting my flag in the pause territory. There should be no reason that we can't double our efforts on neighborhood renewal in the future if we need to. I do want to also acknowledge that there, in the last three seasons, there definitely have been neighborhoods that needed renewal. Down in Lakeview, there was one corner there that flooded right out up onto people's driveways, and it flooded out of the way and needed a drain. Well, it got one last year. There was roads that didn't drain into drains in Colonial, and that got done last year. So, you know, if there's any other instances in Beaumont where things like that are 100% needed right now, I don't think administration has put it in front of us. The 50th Street around to Bow Meadow, it could use love. Sure, it could, for sure. And will it last another year? I think we heard during budget it will. So anyways, that's my plea and support for pausing neighborhood renewal this year, and looking to make sure that we have what we need to get done the projects that are on the list, and to make sure that we have a little bit in the background so that we can make sure they get over the line. And if provincial or federal money comes available, to make sure that we can make good on that, using what we have and not having to use debt to do that. Because in the future, if you use your debt now, you can't use it later. So that's all I have to say for now, and happy to hear what others have to think. Appreciate it.
Councillor Hendricks, followed by Councillor Barnhart.
Well, this has certainly been an interesting budget process, given the start of it in terms of when we actually physically did the work, through to the process that we followed, through to the voting we've had, to the debates we've discussed, and now we're really at square zero again. That's what I'm hearing today, and we're going to have yet again more debates on some of the fundamentals. You know, I appreciate Councillor Sam Monkoff-Swain's passionate conversations consistently, and regarding this neighborhood renewal program and wanting to push it off. I think this is the third round of conversation we've had regarding that very topic. It's one of those shovel-ready projects. It looks after a sector of the construction industry that has a very short summer season, and they've been devastated. They've been devastated by way of this whole process, the economic downturn, you know, and this gives these groups an opportunity for survival to the next season. The other issue is that we simply, because and I call it's not a sexy thing to do neighborhood renewals. It's not a new arts center. But it is a fundamental within our community. And in the past, it was always the go-to piece. Well, we're just push that off to another year and push that off to another year. And then another council gets it. And then they push it off to another year. And then all of a sudden, the incremental costs of doing those repairs are significant. And what could have been a simple repair turns into a huge repair and big costs. You know, we have this rigor, this momentum, this scheduling that we've been following good, solid engineering standards to maintain these parts, bits, and pieces within our community. So it's, you know, it's another one of those things that needs to get done. If it's because we're concerned that we don't have potential funding for other things, you know, I would say I'm disappointed in that. I shouldn't have a concern at this time. We've been given numbers on all aspects of this budget by our admin team and consultants and the rest of the piece. If we're trying to read into those numbers that maybe they're not correct, or there's other issues, you know, coming at us as a result, and we're getting a little bit nervous and we're going to start pulling numbers from somewhere else, that's not really the way to do it, in my opinion. Then that administration should be coming to us with that recommendation and saying, hey, we don't think we're going to have the dollars, and here's our recommendation. Here's what we would cut back. Here's how we would move this thing forward. And instead of us sort of in an ad hoc way taking a list and go, well, maybe some of this, some of that, I'd rather have it that the administration says, guys, you know, here's the call, and we've done the modeling. Here's where we are. You know, I think we got a good solid approach to the way we were moving forward into this year. You know, and then we're saying, well, we'll double up our efforts next year. Well, that's not that simple because, you know, you got to make sure that there's subcontractors around that can in fact do the work. So I'm just not, like, I'm thinking now is the time to throw the stimulus package, you know, into the region to keep things moving, and not defer because we want to bank some money on the maybe that something else may be not going correctly based on what the administration's already told us is so-called, you know, is in their opinion, a professional opinion, that it's sound. So, okay, so then it's sound, and I shouldn't have to worry about it. I shouldn't have to read between the tea leaves. I shouldn't have to think that there might be something else coming at us. Let's just deal with what we have and not speculate. Speculation, I think, can send you down the whole list. And then what are you going to do, right? So that's in my opinion not the way to go. I'd send the administration back and say, listen, do you want to come at us one more time with your thoughts and give it to us in a real solid way, just as they have to this point. So appreciate the list. I think we're solid. Let's go. So,
Councilor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Hendricks. I don't think I could add too much more to what you've said. I'm totally in agreement with where you're at. We have gone through the budget process. I didn't think that this item meant we were opening up the 2020 capital budget for discussion again. We voted on it. We had information. We had the people in the room who were dealing with it. They're not on the screen right now that have the answers to some of those questions. And I just feel that this is coming out of the blue for me. I don't think we should be opening up that piece. Just to add to and support what Councillor Hendricks has said, if you're living in one of the neighborhoods that's due for renewal and this gets put off another year, that's pretty disheartening. And it does create employment. And I think that's another plus for it. As I said, Councillor Hendricks, you've said most of what I had written down in my notes. It's not the sexiest part of our work. It's certainly, we have done lots in our budget to support the need for recreation. This is something that we should be doing. And I'm not okay with deferring it. So I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm completely in agreement with Councillors Barnhart and Hendricks on this one. We already had this discussion. We've already made the capital plans. I don't think we should even be discussing this, frankly, as those decisions have already been taken, and this is just an effort to overturn them. I don't think that the COVID-19 situation makes a significant change to our capital spending. And I don't think that yeah, we might have to spend something else on another project. We've since then agreed to make a significant capital spend on another project. Well, that decision was taken knowing what the budget already was, and knowing what and with the advice from Mr. Dowler and finance and administration as to what our capacity was and whether we could afford to do that or not. So again, not relevant in my view. I'm opposed to changing this at this point because I think we've already debated and discussed it and arrived at a decision and hadn't taken a vote. So no, I don't want to reopen this at all.
No, fair enough. But to clarify, this particular item was to take a look at what we have approved before and what was sent in, and this was an opportunity for council to decide whether we're happy with what we're doing. And so far, we've got some differing opinions on that. If we're happy with our capital plan, or we're happy with the capital spend to move forward with it, or if we wanted to swap it out and make some changes. So this item was very much to have another look at the capital plan in light of COVID-19. And if we come out at the end that it's stay the course, it's stay the course. If we come out that we've changed it, well, that's the will of council, and we'll all have to live with it. But I see Councillor Munkoff Swain, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk, and then Councillors Hendricks and Barnhardt still got their hands up. So that's the order in which we'll go. Councillor Munkoff Swain?
Yeah, I would just, I appreciate the different opinions, but I just reiterate what you said, Your Worship. The budget, the package in front of me that was sent to us is, if council believes there are projects on the unfunded list that are now higher priority than projects that have been approved, then this is an opportunity to identify those. So that's exactly why I'm bringing this forward. So I think from a process perspective, that's why it's there. I won't reiterate the whole piece, but the reason why this is brought up a third time, yes, we agreed and I voted for the neighborhood renewal program back then, but since then our world has changed, not only COVID, but also we've got another $1.5 million that needs to go into the school site. So the budget has changed, and that's why I think we need to reconsider it. So I'll leave it there. My comments still stand, and I think we need that room. So I'll pause there.
Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor Barnhart. You're still on mute, Councillor.
There we go. You got me now?
Yep.
Thank you. A couple questions for administration. We're doing 2 studies right now. Outdoor multi-use field concept design and geotechnical study. If the site conditions come back favorable for that, would you be able to tell me how much it'll take to build that field? Ballpark?
Not just based on the environmental assessment. No, we won't. That'll have to come at the concept.
Okay, so if we forget the environmental piece and we had a great suitable piece of land to build that field on there, how much would that field cost to build?
Similar projects in other communities are perking in at 3 to 3.5. It would depend on our exact scope.
Sounds good, thank you. Arts facility, just wondering if we have some ballpark costs on what an arts facility, about the size that Beaumont is going to need, and I very much appreciate that the feasibility study is what's going to tell us that is going to be. I've heard numbers from 2 million to 10 million. Where do we land if on a sliding scale of that right now? If we were going to build an arts facility in Beaumont, are we at 2 million? Or are we at 5 million?
Depends on. I would say that depends on what the study comes back with as to what our needs actually are. I don't think we can answer that question today, but I'll defer to admin.
Sure. Yeah, it's certainly a moving target. Where I came from, we built an arts facility and we bolted it on the side of a heritage building, and it cost us $6 million. It was a multi-use facility. It seated 175 people. Depending on what you want, size, shape, we sent a letter to the province telling them the intent of is that we would like to consider performing arts facility as part of the new school. So that would change, but the dollar amount, I couldn't even guess.
Okay, so safe to say it's north of $2 million.
Oh,
yeah. Yes, I would say so for sure.
Yeah. So if we say fields 2 and we say we're north of, or we say let's say a fields 3, an arts facility, we're 2+, so that's 5 million there. And then I, just trying to solidify my argument and where I planted my flag, I go back to some of the mayor's comments during the budget retreat about him being uncomfortable with funding the neighborhood renewals from reserves. And, was that the right use for the money? And I know we've had that whole discussion as well, but I don't think his mind was at ease on the end of that vote, and it is what it is. So, I just want to point out that there isn't enough money to do everything that we want to do all the time. And that we emphatically voted for a couple of studies that we've heard loud and clear from our residents that are things that are needed. Where does that dollars come from? Currently, you work through the grants, and you use the grants first, and then you start going into reserves, and then you start going into debt. The reserve study, I don't think is complete yet. Wasn't even going to ask Mr. Dowler that because I know he's been very busy since we've had that conversation, so we won't even go there. But my point is that yes, we had the discussion. The point of the document today, as Councillor Malkoff-Swain said, is despite people not wanting to have the conversation, the point of it was to have the conversation. So we can't be any more frank than that. So when you approve the feasibility study for something, where's the follow through and where's the follow through money for that? So when you approve the arts facility and you want to follow through on that, where's that money going to come from? When you approve the study for the field and we're happy to plant your flag there, where's that money going to come from? So those are the questions that I have going through in my head right now. And I know it's, as Councillor Hendricks said, it's one of those things that if you have concerns with how much money has been allocated by the professionals, then maybe we haven't done something right. I don't think that in my head we haven't done something right. I think it's just me wondering how we're going to follow through on the things that we're doing studies for right now that have been very, very high priority listed in the community based on the arts community, based on the sports community. So anyways, that's my final attempt to further where I planted my flag here today, and happy to hear what others have to say. Thank you.
Okay, just because I don't want to be continually going around in a circle with everybody restating their position over and over again. Yeah, if you just keep comments briefly to the point, because if we're going to go down that rabbit hole, we might as well call the vote if nobody's going to move off their position. So if you got something new or another argument you want to bring up, by all means, we'll keep on going. But yeah, I just don't want to be going down that same rabbit hole. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I don't want to prolong it either, but I just want to be clear. What came out to me in the agenda for this meeting was an information report. It was not a report with a recommendation to change the capital budget. When we have budget, we have consultation, we have notification of the public, we have 3 days of discussion, and now a major budget item is going to be potentially removed because one member who talked against it, I think in the end voted for it, wants it to be revisited again. I don't think that's the right process, and that's my objection to it. And if we want to open up the whole budget again, then I think we have to have more people in the room that are going to be giving us answers to our questions about the impact of that. So I am opposed to the process, and I'm not saying my reason is the right way or my opinion is the only way, but I don't think you bring it forward as an information report and change your budget.
Fair enough. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. Appreciate all the comments. I won't be too long in my comments either. I appreciate everyone's position on it. I'm not sure about the process, as Councillor Barnhart mentioned. I understand where she's coming from. At the same time, the landscape has somewhat changed with the new school opportunity, and I voted for the sidewalk repair program, the neighborhood development program at the time. Administration did say at the time it could be delayed a year, given the fact that we've got obligations coming up with the school, and I'm very much in favor of the school. I would be okay with getting rid of the program for this year if council felt that way in a vote situation. But if it stays in, I'm fine with it too, but I could see us moving it for a year. Many times we'll talk about if you don't do it this year, you won't do it next year. Well, over the years, we've neglected soccer fields and baseball fields and other things for our community in previous years. And our council is doing a very good job of addressing those issues and building things. And we're doing things in a building sense. I'm very proud of that. I know all you are as well too. We are doing building projects as a council. I'm very much in favor of that. So I'm okay with delaying it for a year if council felt that way in a vote situation. But I think it's important that we have resources in case we have some opportunity with some subsidized programs with the government provincially to do some projects in that list. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So having a look at the room and going around, I see a pretty much a 50-50 split down council. So I am going to recommend that we do not vote on this today, but that it's time for, now that we've all heard the various discussions and various reasonings behind it, that we accept the report for information and refer this particular line item back to administration to bring back to a future council meeting as to what the pros and cons of it are. And we can decide then if we want to remove it, but that gives everybody a week or two to now think about it, now that we've all heard each other and we're. Dale?
From the administration's perspective, that becomes very problematic. We can't award the tender, and a couple of weeks in our short season, as Mr. Hendricks, as Councillor Hendricks had said earlier, can make things go sideways on us in a hurry. I thought you were close to having a vote, and so we can have direction and move on. I worry about delaying this item.
Okay, so even delaying it a week would hurt us?
I'm not sure what else we're going to provide council in a week.
Well, I'm just wanting to give council a bit of time to think about it, mostly, because it sort of came up today.
Yeah, and I guess from my perspective, we debated it twice now, as Councillor Hendricks had suggested, and now this is number 3. So,
well, I'll leave it to council. Are you guys prepared to make a decision on this today? If you are, raise your hand. Yeah. Okay, so I guess it comes down to calling a vote as to whether or not we want to defer this line item. I will let Councillor Hendricks have final comments, then we'll call this question. Councillor Hendricks?
Your Worship, process is very, very important because it brings confidence. And when you go through process, you get to the finish line, you vote on something up or down, you shouldn't have a second and a third shot at it. And then you yet again discuss it now in this unique setting where we're zooming in and having yet another conversation about the very same issue regarding the very same points, having yet another vote. I mean, that just takes you somewhere, and that takes you away from the confidence you have in the process. If there's other items on that list, up or down, that didn't roll the way I thought they should have, can I bring those back to? Let's reopen the whole budget. If you're looking for money, there are other places to look. It's a can of worms, and it's a mess, and it'll leave this council, I think, shaken in terms of process. Yes, you've had the third kick at it. That's not my style. Win or lose, up or down, we move on. You want to bring this back to the next budget process and another conversation about the exact same thing yet again, because it'll be 4 times by the time you bring it back yet again to talk about adding it to the next line item for the same thing and potentially more neighborhood renewal. Wow. Okay, so 4 times we've debated this matter. Not fair, not fair, not good. It shakes the confidence of the process, in my opinion. You know, it can't be like this. This has got to be more solid than Jell-O, please. We voted on it, we've dealt with it. Let's move on.
So my only comment back to that would be, you know, throughout the year, we get budget items that come back and change, and administration brings it back to us. We vote on it. We also, we've got to be flexible here. We can't make a decision and then let it go for the full year. Our circumstances have drastically changed. And so the administration put this in front of council for us to and I'll read word for word again, to debate whether we should, if there are any unfunded projects. So that's what is in front of us. And I think you're right. You've made your point clear, Councillor Hendricks, and I think we're 3-3 here. So it's up to the mayor, and whatever way we vote goes. You know, the reality is the circumstances have changed here. We've got some potential projects that we may need to fund that we have now sent forward to the province. We've sent forward a list. If we don't have any room to fund them and through our grant process, then why are we sending them? So I think the question was asked of us. We're bringing it forward because it was asked. I wasn't going to bring it up if it wasn't asked of us. Everyone had an opportunity to look at that whole list and talk about any projects that they thought were warranted or not. This is the only one that I thought we could revisit. Sounds like we've got 2 others, and we'll see where John sits. So I'm just following the process that administration's putting in front of us.
Okay, so from a process point of view, we are in different times, and for my own edification. I was, like I say, when I started out this, I don't want to see the spend reduced. So I don't want to see money taken out and then put on the back burner and not being used just for what may come. So it would have to, like, if you're going to change a project, let's change a project. But it doesn't seem like we're going to change a project. The ask right now is to defer it in case of. The other thing too is right now the project is looking for shovel ready to go projects. And I'm going to be honest, I'm probably going to vote in favor of continuing on with the capital plan as what do you call it, as written, because I don't want to be the guy looking the province in the eye going, yeah, we had one tendered out ready to award and then we shut her down. That's going to provide stimulus. It's going to provide lots of jobs. And I think Councillor Hendricks is right. If we need to find money for those other projects, that's what we have Mike Dollar for. And he can tell us what's possible. But if we're ready to move on, we'll have a councillor that's ready to make the motion to defer the defer that neighborhood renewal, and then we'll vote on it and get rid of it and be finished. Is there a member of council willing to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to defer the neighborhood renewal program for this year.
Discussion on the motion? Further discussion on the motion? No. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
That's 3. All opposed, say aye.
Hey,
Nay. I'm opposed.
You're opposed. I was gonna say, clarify that for me. What are you voting? All right, so that's 4-3 against. Neighborhood renewal goes ahead and the budget is intact. Is there any further discussion on this motion, or are we now on this item, or are we now waiting for to see what comes out from stimulus dollars?
John, could you repeat that last question, please? I didn't get it.
Does anybody have anything else they would like to discuss surrounding this line item, or are we just gonna wait now and see what comes back from the province in terms of stimulus funding?
Wait and see.
Okay, so can I get a motion to move into closed session to discuss item 4A, the waste management RFP update? Councillor Danluck?
So move, your worship. Thank you.
All in favor? Say aye. Carries
Aye.
unanimous. Okay, so thank you very much. So we've come out of in-camera, there being no business arising for the in-camera session. We are now free to adjourn the meeting, and we'll see you all at the briefing on Thursday. So meeting is adjourned.